Hi there. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Maybe you're coming in now. I just heard another doorbell. Are you there? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Let me check something. Oh, there we go again. Hi, Alex. Hi, Alex. Can you hear me or see me? I'll give you a request to turn your video on. That way we can see each other. Hi there. You're not showing any audio connection, which is kind of odd. If you can hear me, let's see. Can you hear me okay? Oh, I see a chat. Hold on. Do you have a mic attached? Your internal mic? Why don't you go ahead, change your browser, log out, and Alex, let me know when you're back in. Alex, looks like you got everything working now.
Yeah, I got it this time. All right.
Excellent. How are you?
Oh, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm a little sick. I
Oh
thought this was
no.
a go-to meeting. Also, that's why I joined, and I don't look. Yeah.
Actually, this is the first time that I've ever even seen you, because in new media marketing, your avatar was the witness protection uh, avatar. So I'm so glad to meet you, kind of like in person. I think that's neat.
Oh, I tried uploading a picture so I could be more personal, and I wanted to communicate more with the teachers because I feel like sometimes I miss over the lessons just because I don't get a chance to like pick their brain.
Well, good. I'm glad that we were able to connect today. And I think you'll enjoy what we talk about. Because you did a good job in new media marketing.
You thought so? I don't I didn't know.
I mean,
Okay.
you had new media, the new media marketing class is tough. Both these courses are tough. Let me just put it that way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's graduate school. But I thought you had a number of great concepts and ideas, and you did. You were kind of like the silent one, right? Because we didn't talk, and then all of a sudden I get your assignment. I go, wow, this is pretty good.
I
So
just and the fact that I also don't talk sometimes just I ended up really bored with the company that I chose. So I have no idea how I kind of progressed with the assignment because an art studio they don't really have much to like play with, to be honest.
well, so here's the thing, and this is this, and with any of your other courses too. This applies. I know you don't have many left, but you're like the chief marketing officer or the owner of the studio. So you it's make believe. You've kind of got this quasi real thing that you're relating to, but in our world here, you're in charge. You can make anything happen that you want to. So no matter how boring they are in real life, you're the chief now,
Mm.
and your job is to make it, to figure out how to make it marketable and take that business to the next level. So, but before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you go to school? What's your undergrad? Is it? I think it's computer animation.
Yes,
Where'd you get that degree from?
in Full Sail.
From Full Sail. Excellent. And what part of the country are you in? Are you in Florida?
Yes, sir. I'm actually right by Full Sail.
Oh, then we're probably neighbors.
Hmm. I'm on Eastbrook,
Well, I'm just on the other
which is
side
on
of
a
Howell
lower.
Branch. I'm off of Dodd.
You're on Howell Branch.
I'm on
Oh,
the
we're
other.
really close.
I'm on the other side of Howell Branch, on off of Dodd Road.
Oh, we are really really close. Okay.
Yes, we are. So I could open the window and we could have this meeting by shouting. Isn't that
Probably.
funny? So um, anybody watching the recording, they'll get a kick out of that. So tell me what you want to do with your degree once you graduate.
Um, I'm originally I was trying to open up a bit. I'm trying to open up a business with a friend of mine, uh, and I wanted to understand how to do the marketing side because he had gotten a business degree. So I wanted to understand how to implement the, so I wanted to cover all our bases.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I had family who wanted to start their own businesses, and I figured by having a marketing degree, I can always jump into their projects, and then having art to back that up, I can make the copy. I have some sort of relevance in someone else's stuff if I can't get my own thing though.
Well, marketing is the broader. We're taking a look at digital marketing, and the graduate program is different than the undergrad. Um, and the undergrad, as you know from your computer animation degree, you're very involved with putting your hands in and creating something.
Mm.
At the graduate degree, we still encourage you to do that. Like in this class, you'll actually write a press release next week, and you're going to do some things this week too. Actually, every week you're going to be creating something, but the focus is more on the strategy. In other words, I'll give you a cooking example. As an undergrad, you learn how to make the meatloaf.
Mm.
as a graduate student, you learn what to do with the meatloaf. Do I sell it? Do I distribute it? What do I do with that meatloaf now that it's been made?
Initially, that was just what I wanted to do with my skills because I didn't know what I was getting into with marketing. It just seemed like one of the better places to jump into. Uh, Now, I've actually been able to help my brothers out a little bit, but I'm still not exactly sure where I'm gonna go. I'm still trying to work on this business, but
Well,
uh,
the neat thing about here's the good news and the bad news. Most entrepreneurs have great marketing skills because otherwise they wouldn't be able to get their business up and running.
Hmm.
Like Elon Musk.
oh, sure.
Elon Musk is not a rocket scientist. He's not he's not really a car engineer. What Elon Musk is, he's a marketer. He knows how to promote. I mean,
Hmm.
when they sent that Tesla into space and the shot of the pseudo astronaut driving the Tesla in space, oh my God, what a you know incredible marketing capability. Um, but so marketers, by our very nature, we're also business developers. We're in the business of making money. Okay. Now, from an individual standpoint, sometimes when you go to work for somebody, when things get tough, the first people they let go is the marketer. Or why? Because they figure they got the skill set themselves. The other thing that can happen sometimes if you got you've got an individual marketing business and you got clients, is that you make a bid and the person has a number of friends, and one of the friends says, "What the heck are you doing with that? I could have done that for a lot less because I do marketing. I don't have a degree in marketing, but I do marketing." So one of the things you always have to do is to really understand your expertise and be able to communicate that expertise and the value that you add to whatever business that you're doing. That's just kind of a side stuff, not related necessarily to what we're going to talk about today, but that's just some background chatter, I guess.
Okay.
So this course, along with the other course you had me in new media marketing. Here, let me do this. Give me a second. You probably are wondering, what the heck is he doing? Oh, come on. Making me delete things one at a time. Okay. Just want to make sure I have a couple here. And Okay, so when we talk, I got to do this too. Give me a sec. I share my screen with you. Okay, so you should be seeing a keynote presentation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So in what we're doing is, remember, there's three channels, three media channels that we can work in as marketers. There's paid media, which is really advertising. And then we have owned media, which is our website, our Facebook, etc., other social media. And then the rest here is earned. And for the most part, in both the new media class and in this class, where we're trying to dominate, where we're trying to work, is in this channel here, in earned media. And so when we convince an influencer, for example, to tell our story, an influencer is really a new media journalist. And that's not much different than if we have a press release that we're distributing, we have a message that we want distributed or shared. We'll reach out to new media journalists, and we'll also reach out to traditional journalists and so forth. So that is the channel that we're operating in. But we also, you'll see, particularly by the time we get to week 4, we actually take on this role of new media journalist, and we then take our message and we share it in our channel, in our own media. So for example, you may write a press release and you'll distribute it, and we'll talk about how you can distribute it. You'll learn that in week 2 and week 3. And then you may say to yourself, I want to share that information on my website. I want to do it in a blog. So here's the trick. You wrote this as a public relations counselor. So now you got the press release in front of you. You got to put on your new media journalist hat and say, how do I write this, not as a press release, but as a blog post? And then you write the blog post. Or you look at it and you say, okay, how do I share this press release information on my Facebook post? You're not going to just take the press release, copy and paste it into the Facebook post. Nobody's going to pay attention to it. So you got to kind of, probably because Facebook is short story format, you may end up writing 2, 3, 4 Facebook stories, Facebook posts that you time
Just to cover the one.
Yeah, that you time their release, and it covers your press release in total. And sometimes we create something that's so fantastic that we actually then decide, you know what, we need to promote this as well. And so then we also carry it to the paid media channel, and we develop something related, and we pay to have it advertised. And in week, I think I do this either in week 2 or week 3. I'll talk to you about Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, and their Super Bowl campaign in 2019, and how everything started with a press release in 2018, and one of the best rated commercials in the Super Bowl was actually developed as a result of the press release. So we'll look at how all that comes together, and how, even though we're dominating in this channel, this is where we want to operate, earned media. We also have input into these other two channels. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if it's a big company, obviously I'm not going to do I'm going to take the press release and I'm going to give it to the social media manager and say, I kind of envision these posts, these stories, and I leave it to that person to kind of develop that strategy for this item. And the same with the paid media. If I see a need for an ad, if it's a larger company that I'm working in, I'm going to go to the advertising folks and I'm going to say, hey, we need to do something with this. This is kind of what I envision, and let them take it away at that point as well. But the idea being that we're driving those activities in each of those other categories. Okay.
Okay.
So this is where we operate, earned media. And the way the course works, week one, we do a lot of foundational work. You're going to, you need to do some heavy duty research. It's going to be interesting because with all the topics that are going on right now, oh my God, the news cycles are just incredible. By the way, let me come back and say that we're very similar to paid advertising. This is why I said earlier that you're the chief marketing officer. You can do whatever you want. So as we develop this, I want you to think about paid advertising and earned media and the similarities. And when you create an advertisement, the first thing that you develop is what's known as the creative. What's the creative?
The creative.
The creative is, all right. So let's say that you do a animated little video.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, that's the creative. Or maybe we film a commercial. That's a creative.
So any form of media, or as long as it has some sort of visual element.
Yeah, it manifests itself in the visual, in the media.
Okay.
But even more so, it's the idea that is manifested by the media itself. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So what we do in the earned media channel, and it's interesting. If you go to, you ever watch the TV show Mad Men?
No, I haven't seen Mad Men.
If you get a chance, watch a couple episodes. It's great. It's 1950s, and the stories are interesting. But I always watch it to see what they're, the advertising component, because the story Mad Men is a take on Ad Men, advertising men on Madison Avenue in New York, which is, New York's the mecca for a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And for advertising firms, that's where you want to be.
Doesn't Mad Men take place in Miami?
No, it actually takes place in New York.
Oh, okay.
And for example, there's one episode where the client is Kodak, and Kodak has a new device, and it's the rotary or the carousel slide projector. I grew up with the slide projector. I had a Kodak carousel slide projector. Before the carousel came out, slides were delivered in a cube, and Bell and Howell was the main company that made slide projectors at the time. So Kodak wanted to differentiate themselves. They had created this new product, and it was the carousel. And this episode of Mad Men, the ad agency is trying to sell a campaign to Kodak, and the guy that's starting to do it, it's horrible. And Don Draper takes over, and Don Draper starts playing with the carousel, and there's some slides in there. And as he's clicking through the slides, he starts talking about life. He starts talking about memories, the importance, this memory and that memory, and he ties it all back then to the carousel. And the general idea being the carousel represents the carousel of our life of memories, and how we can carry it around with us. And by the time he gets done in that meeting, there's not a dry eye in the room. And I venture to say most of the audience that's watching the TV show probably had a tear too. It was very, very powerful. What he did in that room at that moment was develop the creative. They now understood what they were going to do. Now they had to put something around it, the media around it.
Oh, okay. I see.
Okay. So a lot of time, and it's funny, for years, and even today, you get some people from New York, and they'll talk about the animation. What's the animation? And you're thinking to yourself, they talking about a cartoon, they talking about computer animation. Animation in New York, and for decades, anything that moved. So if it was a series of pictures that you were flipping through, that's an animation. If it's a video, that's an animation. Didn't matter what. But anyway, that's the creative. Now, the equivalent to that in our class is what we call a newsworthy event. So a newsworthy event is something that other people, the news media, would be interested in talking about. Okay.
Okay.
And a newsworthy event can be either a real event, or it could be a false event, a pseudo event. Now, mind you, a pseudo event isn't a lie. Not really. A pseudo event is where you've taken something and you've made it into something else. For example, once upon a time, we used to do polls, surveys, to find out what people were thinking, so we could then report on what people were thinking. Okay?
Okay.
Today, we do polls to get the data, to get the results that we want, to tell the story that we want to tell.
I've noticed that in some marketing campaigns. Yeah.
And I'll tell you where that concept started was actually with one of the people that's identified as the father of modern public relations and modern marketing. And his name is Edward Bernays. And one of the techniques that he developed in his midlife was the technique of pulling together a panel of experts. And so if you ever saw any commercial where they say 4 out of 5 doctors recommend X.
Like the Colgate commercials.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That technique was pioneered by Edward Bernays decades ago. And so, that's a pseudo event, because did 5 dentists come together to see whether Crest toothpaste is really better than any other toothpaste? No. they were called together. They were paid to come together, and they were paid to say, well, they were manipulated to be able to say X versus Y. A good example, another good example. Have you ever heard of the Pepsi taste test?
Is it where people put Coke and Pepsi side by side and they try and have a person compare them?
Yeah. You know who wins 4 out of 5 times?
Coke?
No, Pepsi.
Oh,
Because when they're blindfolded or they don't know which item it is, Pepsi actually tastes a little bit sweeter and it's a little bit more appetizing. Now there's some people that just don't like Pepsi, period.
yeah.
But
It's the
normally, I would almost guarantee if you didn't know, you would probably more than likely go towards Pepsi. So Pepsi had done some research on this and said, "Whoa, is this true? Hey, we can run these Pepsi taste tests, and we're going to come out on top just about all the time." And that's how those ads came about. It was never up to it was never a question. Pepsi was always going to win, minus a few anomalies. But that's kind of a pseudo event. Today, you see pseudo events too, not only with polling, but a lot of journalists. Journalists used to go and do investigations. They would go and if there was an issue or a situation, they would go and investigate. They would want to understand who, what, when, why, where, and how. Remember those questions. They're critical. They're the 6 big journalist questions. I'll write them down because that's how big they are. If you can answer those questions, you can write a story. But today, journalists don't do that. Guess journalists have an idea. They have a story they want to tell. And so what do? Do you know what the most common trick in the business is?
Who and what? And then they write their story?
Close. Very, very similar. They open up TweetDeck and they search for somebody that said something similar to what they want to say, and they've done their research. They found somebody. And if they find a couple more to back it up, I mean, if you look at stories today in online newspapers and magazines and all, they're filled with Twitter. We're using Twitter to support what they want to do. And it really is journalism malpractice. But it all is rooted in the concept of a pseudo event. And what's interesting too, I don't know if you know this, out of everybody that uses social media, or that say they use social media, what percent are actually on Twitter?
Are you talking about in the world or in the U.S.? Oh, okay, in the world.
Well, let's go. We can use U.S.
Uh, isn't it like an 80 or 81% user base?
No, it's half that.
Oh, 40%.
It's about 40%. The 2 most popular social media platforms are Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, that's true.
And
I know more people who use Instagram.
And they hover just around 70% penetration. So, it's interesting. And other than some really fringe social media channels, Twitter is just about the lowest that's out there, and yet that's the one where they go to create the pseudo event stories. Anyway, So so you have the ability, you can tell either talk about a real event or a pseudo event. I'll give you another example. Again, I'll use an Edward Bernays example. He was asked to, he got called to this town somewhere, Missouri, middle America, and the hotel was a hotel that was requesting his services, and their sales had been slumping. And what Bernays did, he did a little bit of research, and he said, "You guys have been around for a while, haven't you?" And the answer was, "Yeah, we're just about 100 years old." Do you know what that sneaky guy Bernays did? He didn't develop a marketing campaign. He said, we need to have the town recognize all the contributions that your hotel has made to this town over the last 100 years. How your hotel has been intricately linked with the town. So he went to the town council and he said, you've got an incredible landmark here. And this hotel is coming up on its 100th anniversary, its 100th birthday. And, you know, what a great way for the town to gain notoriety and get in the news and all that. You need to celebrate the 100th anniversary of this hotel and what it means to the town. As a matter of fact, I'll even help you put together a committee to plan this whole thing out. And that's what they did. He didn't develop a marketing campaign. The town celebrated the 100th anniversary, the 100th birthday of this hotel. And they had a parade, they had a day named for the hotel. I mean, it was crazy. And the amount of publicity for both the hotel and the town was huge. But that's what a pseudo event is. So, you know, again, the hotel was coming up on 100 years old, but nobody was going to care.
Yeah.
But they made it something bigger. I'll give you a very modern example, and it could be controversial, it could not. But like if you look in the news right now, there's stories on both sides of the aisle whether how bad COVID-19 is. Okay. And there's no doubt that the media made it a bigger event than it was. And so they took a real event and they magnified it and made it even bigger. And that falls in line with a pseudo event as well. When you change the character, like we talked with the hotel.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you. I understand.
So as you get into next week, and the reason I cover this now, you want to start thinking about this, because you want to. You know, I have a lot of students that tell me my company doesn't do anything, and my response is, well, if all you were doing was telling me what your company does, I'd be giving the grade to your company and not you. You know, play CEO, play chief marketing officer, and create something out of nothing. Now, I will give you a very solid example of a real event. Let's say your gallery opens a second location, and let's say that the gallery, as a result of opening the second location, they're going to receive on loan from the Orlando Art Museum a couple of Salvador Dali paintings to exhibit at the opening.
Yeah.
That's a real event. Now, think about that. Behind the scenes, you know, first you had to have the idea. Well, or maybe they came to you and said, we're having an opening. But you say, we need to make it bigger. And so then you go and you go to the Orlando Museum of Art and you say, how can you participate in this? What can we do together And so the PR function is as much a creative function as it is just a communication function. It's just like being an advertiser, except you're not going to pay for advertising. You're going to then take this newsworthy event and distribute it to people that will tell the story for you.
Oh, I kind of do this on my own time. Anyways, this sounds like this is gonna be fun.
It is. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's a hoot. Um, so that's the gist of the newsworthy event. Okay. Now, let me share quickly because we're in the bonus time. I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay.
So, when we talk about public relations, it's important to understand come on. Did my pen die on me? Hold on a second. It's like my pen just went away. Let's see here. So when we think of an organization, well, I'm still good. Give me just a sec. I may lose this completely.
I'm in no rush.
Looked like it was having a pairing issue. And we're back. That's what it was. It lost the pairing. Okay. So if we take a look at an organization And the organization, I like to draw just a circle because I'm going to.
Oh, your screen's not showing up right now.
Oh, okay. Thanks for telling me that. It was funny. It had the green line around it, which kind of tells me that it's sharing, which was weird. You see
Okay.
it
Now
now?
I can. Yes.
Okay. So we take a circle and we'll bisect it twice. And the way the simplest view of an organization is you have production, you have sales and marketing, you have maintenance, which is HR, finance, and then you have planning. Those are the four big buckets of an organization. In the very center there, that's where the president and the chief executive officer exist. They've got purview over everybody. And public relations is what's known as a boundary organization, a boundary function. Which means that we're.
Oh, excuse me, just a second.
Sure.
Come in. Sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. So the boundary function is that we operate outside the boundary of the organization. And we operate outside the boundary of the COO. So what's happening is we take care of communication to each of these groups. And we also take care of communication that has to go out this way. Now out here, these are publics, or sometimes you'll hear it referred to as audiences of the organization. So
For the arrows pointing outside?
Yes. So for sales and marketing, there's a public and an audience. For the planning, there's a public and an audience. For HR, the same, and finance, the same. And for production, there is. Now, I'll give you some specific terms. So for sales and marketing, the audience that is there that we look at is the target market, right? Which is comprised of our personas. There's no real special name down here, but the people that are over here are going to be suppliers and also potential employees, because it's HR's job to bring new people in, right?
Yeah.
And then,
yes, sir.
And then in production, you have the supply chain. Now there could be other members. Anybody can really be a member of the audience. But we then add another category, and that other category is stakeholder. And in reality, the people that I just announced to you, they're really stakeholders, because a stakeholder is an audience member that if the company does something that can affect them, they then get the title stakeholder. If they can do something that affects the company, then they're also a stakeholder. Okay? Now, over here, so you can have, let's say that you have your gallery is downtown Orlando. So anybody that lives or works within walking distance of your gallery, they might, even though they have nothing to do with your gallery, they could be considered a public or an audience. But if they come in and purchase from you, or if you're a bad neighbor and you're leaving trash all over the place, and they write and complain to the city about you, they've now become a stakeholder, even though they have nothing else to do with you. They've been able to affect you. Okay?
Okay.
So in public relations, we need to understand that our messages go out to the broad audience, and in that we can have stakeholders, and in that we have to be aware, because our messaging can have an impact on somebody, which would then make them a stakeholder as well. Now, in the old days of public relations, and I'm not going to go through all the iterations, but just a little bit, basically you had spokespeople. You started with spokespeople. They would just share a message one way. And in today's society, the public relations function has evolved to really where it serves two purposes: both input, we want to take information in and be responsive to what we're hearing, and we want to take information and share it. So it's two-way street. What happens to a stakeholder over here, we pay attention to, and it could change what the organization itself does. So the role, and you'll see how this applies on a small scale in a moment. What we're doing is encouraging two-way communication, and as a result, we're being responsive. Now, there are some instances where well, you don't even see that too much, and I'll give you an example. It used to be like presidential press conferences. They were two-way, but the sender wasn't very responsive to what the audience was providing. If the president has a press conference, and they may take questions afterwards, but for many years, those questions wouldn't have an impact on direction or policy. But, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, by the way, no judgment here. But look today, think about the COVID crisis and how much the press, and for lack of a better word, I'm just going to say badgered the administration about masks. I mean, for weeks, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx were saying, masks don't do any good. By the way, I don't know if you saw, but over the last Friday, the World Health Organization and the New England Journal of Medicine came out with a definitive report that said masks don't do any good.
Oh, well, then I should stop wearing this mask.
Unless you're interacting with somebody that has COVID-19, and then you have to have all the precautions, not just a cloth mask. But think about it: the press, the media, the White House press corps, they were able to convince the White House to amend the guidelines with regard to masks. So even today, in some of the most intransient organizations, there's two-way communication where both sides can influence the other, and that's the way that communication flows today with regard to public relations. Now, we actually, your assignment this week is twofold. So you want to do a 6-minute video. and try and break it up equally, because you'll find it's a lot easier that way. The first part of the video, you want to clarify and define the strategic context of your organization. So you want to clarify what their mission is, what their vision, any critical success factors, CSF, there we go. Any, their culture, their values, what their business model is. How do they create value? How do they create revenue? You'll want to identify their audiences and their stakeholders. And a high-level overview then of the business intelligences that you would want to monitor on a regular basis, and there's always three. So business intelligence relates to consumer, competitor, and the overall business environment. And to do the business environment, you can do a PESTLE analysis. Alex, you know what PESTLE stands for?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I always looked it up.
Okay. Political, economic, societal, technology, legal, and environmental. Okay. Then, so you got to come, you don't have to dig deep into that because you only got 3 minutes. You want to provide an overview.
Okay.
Why? Because when you're dealing with public relations, you have to understand why the organization exists. You got to understand where it exists in the world. And that's what you're doing with establishing all those points. The second half, now I used to be very, very direct on the second half in terms of and I still have the instructions in there for how to do it, but you need to develop a monitoring system, and I'll explain what that is, using tools that are available, and you got to do it somewhat on an automated basis. In other words, you can't rely on you going into Google or Bing or any other search engine every day and typing in a bunch of long tail or short tail search queries to figure out what's going on in the world. You got to have information coming into you on a regular basis. So there are a number of tools that have a free service where you can get a taste for this. The two I suggest are Feedly or NetVibes, but there's a bunch of others. And then for social, Hootsuite, and then to set up custom alerts, you can just use Google Alerts. But try and put this all together in some form of automation. Now, the information that you're getting, if it's coming in from Feedly or Hootsuite, or see, the problem with Hootsuite right now for social, if it's not your account, your social media account, Hootsuite won't work for you unless you have a paid account. And I don't want everybody, listen, don't go out and buy a subscription to anything just for this class. Use the free version as much as possible. So, you might want to use TweetDeck is another good tool for Twitter. And there's a bunch out there. Social Mention is good, but do some research to find what works best for you. And you want to get it, and you want the information to be coming in so that you're looking at the industry. You want to look at your competition. You want to look at your consumers, your brand, specifically your brand. You want to monitor what people are saying about your brand. You want to monitor if, you know, if it's getting a mention in the news that you may not be aware of. So your brand, and then also your own personal brand, because unfortunately, and I'll tell you, I'm I have a kind of weird. All my social media is kind of weird. I'm not worried about my brand, as it relates to my clients. But if I depended on my clients for business, I'd do away with all my social media accounts and create new ones, and I'd be very vanilla, meaning that there'd be nothing that anybody could object to. I'd put kitten videos on.
Oh, I I would probably I haven't really started my own social media account because I didn't want to put something out. Like I have a Facebook, but I don't have anything out there that I'm actively using like that because
So,
I don't.
well, let
Oh,
me tell
sorry.
you. So, what you should do, the approach that you should take with your Twitter, create a Twitter, create and your Facebook and a LinkedIn, okay, and share what you're learning in your classes to the world, and position yourself as a marketing expert on those social media channels.
Okay.
Okay,
Let me write that down. I hadn't thought of that. I was trying something else, honestly.
so you do it that way. Um, so what you want to do is monitor, and you want to share with me how you put the system together. And again, there's very detailed instructions. I'm just saying you don't have to use the Feedly or the Net Vibes, but I still want the same outcomes. And then I want you to actually use the monitoring system, and you should use it all through class. Once you get this up and running, you should check it every day. But what I want you to, in particular, what I want you to then come back and tell me a couple things that you've learned about your brand as a result of monitoring. Now, don't come back and tell me that your company doesn't do Twitter. That's what you learned by monitoring Twitter for your company. You know that going in. That's not something, you know, I've had students say, well, we should be tweeting more. No, you knew that before you even started monitoring. What you want to do is you want to look for information in your data collection that serves one of three purposes. You're looking for stories that you can curate, in other words, collect, and then share with your audiences, your brand's audiences. Give you an example. You're collecting you're collecting information around your industry, and you see a fascinating story about an artist. You see a fascinating story about a new gallery. It could be anywhere, doesn't matter. But you found it fascinating, right? So you say, I'm gonna curate that. I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna share with my brand's audience that very story. It's allowing you to create content so that you've got information. You know, what you want to be doing is building relationships with these people all the time. So your job is to share content, and if you have to create it from scratch, that's tough. But if you go in and you find 5, 6 articles that you think are you know worth sharing, and all you do is share it, that's easy. That's easy peasy. So that's one thing. What can you curate and share to your audience? The second thing that you look for are ideas. You're looking for ideas that you can modify, and I'll use the word steal, but I'll use it with air quotes.
Something to inspire you.
Yes, very good. For a newsworthy event that you can create for your brand.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third thing that you're monitoring for, that was excellent, by the way. The third thing that you're looking for is anything that could be a threat to your business. So imagine how many businesses were saw the COVID crisis coming and took preliminary steps to be prepared. That's an example of seeing a threat and trying to mitigate it.